One thing that independents often don't give enough attention to when they're pitching a project, particularly when they're pitching it to a distributor or a potential studio backer, financer, is they have their creative pitch, but they don't have their business pitch. And your creative pitch and your business pitch need to go hand in hand. If one of those is missing or is weak, you've got a problem. Right? And artists, all too often, they've got a great creative plan, but they don't have a business plan in place. And no studio or distributor or financer or bank, for that matter, in the U.S. is going to get behind you with any kind of resources if they don't see a way that they're going to get their money back. That's just the reality of the situation. So we'll discuss that. Okay, without further ado, let's talk about film company business structure. There are actually 3 levels, and if you guys, hopefully you can see this. This is as large as I can make it, unfortunately, so please feel free to move forward. There are 3 levels that can exist. For very small companies, these might be condensed, but there's actually a logic to having these different tiers of organization. There's the production company, there are development companies, and then there's the producing company. And many people say, well, isn't production company and producing company the same? They're actually slightly different, and we'll talk about how. So, and in many cases, when you talk about different companies, you might walk into a building and you'll perceive one company, and it's actually these 3 sort of legal organizations, structural organizations within one physical location, right? It's not necessarily different places, but it's different sort of conceptual methods of organizing things. The production company is the holding company for all interests and entities. So basically, this is like the producer's central command center. So any permanent administrative, executive producers, et cetera, your foundational core creative teams, those people all reside within the production company, your accounting teams, et cetera. So the production company is the nerve center that's going to maintain relationships with your talent, with banks, with governments. If you're in places like Taiwan or India or so forth, the producing company is the company that's maintaining those friendly relationships with the local authorities, with people who actually are giving influxes of cash and so forth. And this is usually a corporation or an LLC. I don't know if you guys, do you have LLCs here, limited liability companies? Yeah, it's some sort of legal entity. There you go, yeah, or like an LTD or so forth. Now, within that production company, you will have development companies. And development companies are formed to fulfill very specific filmmaking plans. So 3 to 6 films within a genre or a certain mode of media output. So for example, you might have a production company that within it has a development company doing flash animated TV series, right? And another development company that's responsible for feature films done in 3D, right? Another development company that has a mandate to do, action, romantic, sci-fi, whatever. And the point is that each development company sort of has a genre or a mode or a model that it is focused upon. And that development company might exist for 5 to 10 years and then go away, right? Or it might exist for, decades. It depends on their mission and their mandate. But what those things offer is an opportunity for investors to focus their attention on a specific type of thing, a specific aspect of the business within that company, and know that their money and their resources are being focused in that area. It also allows the executive producers and administrators at the production company level to see how things are being allocated in terms of like the balance of their portfolio, if you will. The same way you would balance an investment portfolio. They're balancing their attention of the work and resources within these different development companies. And you'll hear, you read in the paper, Tom Cruise got a deal with Universal to open a development company to do blah, 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 right? That's an example of this. Creators such as yourselves may get the opportunity to, let's say a studio sees your video on YouTube and they go, my God, this is genius. Get that kid in here. And they say, you know what? We want to set up a deal with you. We're going to have you have your own development company within our studio. Can't really pay you much, but you'll have your name on the door. We'll have a parking spot for you and so forth. And you'll suddenly have this development company. And let's say your grandmother's name was Bubby. It might be Bubby Productions underneath the larger context of this production studio. So does that conceptually kind of make sense how that's mapping? Great. Okay. Now, underneath the development companies, or actually sort of underneath and next to them, are the producing companies. A producing company is a separate business entity created for each film. So each film or each TV series or each thing that is created from the development companies becomes its own little legal entity. So let's say that I have, let's say Henry's Garden, my short film. I want to make that into a feature. Henry's Garden, the feature, right? Simplistic Pictures could be the developing company under Universal. Let's say Universal just loves me, right? I know I'm picking on Universal. And they say, Kevin, we want Simplistic Pictures to be a development company under Universal, right? I say, great. And so then we're creating Henry's Garden, the feature. We would actually create an LLC or a corporation for Henry's Garden. All the finances, the budgets, all of the issues related to that specific film are contained in that little wrapper, that legal wrapper of that company. So if somebody trips and falls on the Henry's Garden set and sues, right, they're suing within the context of that little bubble, right? It's not, of course, actually, they'd probably be smart and sue everybody, right? They would sue that company, they would sue the development company, and they would sue the umbrella production company. But what you're trying to do is, number one, contain your liabilities within these legal entities, but also organize your costs. The same way that you would organize your files on your computer within different directories. Okay, my models are here, right? My flash files are over here. Here's my pictures of my girlfriend in this file over here, this directory. You're compartmentalizing things in an orderly fashion. This is allowing you to do the same thing. Make sense? Great. So as it says, each film's accounting and liability is isolated from the others. And then each producing company will only ever produce one film, after which it will be dissolved. The company is literally disbanded at that point. And this, quite frankly, is what LLCs in the US are set up to do. LLCs are not intended to go on forever. They even ask you when you form your LLC, if you've ever done one, they say, what is your anticipated duration of existence? You know, and you might say 10 years or 70 years. You can go up, I think, to about 75. I think that's the max in the US. But the notion is that this is existing for a certain period of time and then going away. The assets will be liquidated or propagated up into the rest of the company, given back to the investors, to the producer, and then, you know, we're done. Okay. Having said all that, if you're an independent guy who's just making one film, all of these three might just be you. You might just create one company, like Simplistic Pictures, and have it all in one thing. That's up to you. You don't have to split it out like this. The larger you get, and particularly if you have a company that intends to make more than one film, if you want to have a slate of content that you're producing, particularly if you're producing a slate of content across different media or in different genres, this is something that's worth looking into. Of course, this adds overhead. There's legal things to, you have to have an accountant and a lawyer, et cetera, who help you set this up. So you have to balance your need for this overhead with the value of that overhead.